Good evening, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports with another football video, and today I'm going over my Week 6 power rankings for the 2022 NFL season. I do this series on the channel every single week, so make sure to come back next week if you enjoy it. Let's get right into it. First off, we have the dumpster fire, and this is the same teams as last week, but just a different order. The Steelers have gone down to 32, probably for the first time ever in the power rankings on my channel. At 31, we have the Texans. At 30, we have the Panthers. At 29, we have the Washington football team. The Steelers started off strong. They beat the Bengals week 1. And then TJ Watt got injured. They lost a couple of games, and their offense has looked increasingly worse. Kenny Pickett took over as quarterback, and he hasn't performed. The Steelers just overall have not been a great team so far this season, even though they did win week 1, and it's just been downhill. The Texans started off strong with a tie against the Colts, and then they became the Texans again, and then this past week they beat the the Jaguars in a game that I don't think anyone expected because the Jaguars actually look decent so far. Carolina and Washington have both had pretty underwhelming seasons. They both had solid games this week. Washington was really fighting it with Tennessee, and the Panthers looked okay in their game, but ultimately both of them lost. Next up, we have the bad category. We have the Bears, the Lions, the Broncos, and the Seahawks. The Broncos, I think this is the lowest that they've been on the power rankings so far. I originally started them in the top 5, I believe, because I really thought Russell Wilson was going to do well. I've been hesitant to put them lower, but after this week's loss, I really can't hold them any higher than this until I can see anything from their offense. Their defense has been above average, but their offense really has been horrendously bad, and they couldn't even get a field goal in overtime to tie against the Colts this week. They scored 3 field goals in regulation, and they didn't score anything in overtime, losing 12-9 in one of the saddest football games I've ever watched. The only reason why I have them above the Lions is because the Lions got shut out this week. And the only reason why the Bears are below the Lions is because it's the Bears. I don't really have an explanation for that one. I really just don't believe in the Bears. I don't believe in Justin Fields. Technically, if you look at it objectively, the Bears probably should be the best team in this category because they have played a lot of very strong teams very well. The Lions should probably be number 2, but I really don't want to put Russell Wilson below the Bears yet. And Seattle's at the top because they have beaten the Broncos. They played a pretty solid game against and the Lions. They beat the Lions last week. They beat the Broncos this week, so they have beaten 2 teams in this category. Well-deserved top spot in the bad category, and they played a okay game against the Saints this week with a very strong offensive performance. A couple weeks in a row. Geno Smith looking a lot better than Russell Wilson right now. Next category is they've had their moments. We got the Jaguars, we got the Raiders, we got the Browns, we got the Falcons, and we got the Colts. Yes, the Raiders have not played yet. They're playing tomorrow night against Kansas City. If the Raiders manage to win that game, they'll probably shoot up to around 17. But for right now, they're at 23. Their only win so far this season was last week against... I know who it was. For some reason, I cannot think of it currently. Against the Denver Broncos. The Raiders were able to defeat the Broncos by scoring a pretty good number of points against their touted defense. And they also let up the most points that the Broncos have scored so far this season, so that's what you can tell about their defense. The Raiders really have been inconsistent, and I really haven't seen a whole lot from Derek Carr, which is what I really need to see before I can put them any higher than this. Jaguars at 24 after the loss to the Texans this week. I really wanted to have them higher. I really wanted them to do well, but they were around 16 last week, and then they lost to the worst team in the league, and I really can't have them a whole lot higher than this right now. I have the Browns at 22 because they have lost to both the Falcons and the Jets, and their wins are against the Panthers and the Steelers, who are arguably the 2 worst teams in the entire league. They lost this week in a very tight game that they really... I wasn't expecting them to be in the first place, but it was a close game. I really think that the Browns have a lot more potential than they're showing. Again, they did almost beat the Chargers, but I just can't put them a whole lot higher than 22 until they can win a game against a team like the Chargers. As for the Colts, the Falcons beat the Browns. They've had pretty decent success against teams that I have lower than them, and their losses are against pretty strong teams in pretty close games. As for the Colts are improving from their Week 1 performance. They beat Kansas City a couple weeks ago. They had another not great game last week, but they were able to beat the Broncos this week, earning them the number 20 spot. Moving on, we have the temporary placement. The Dolphins are a lot better than 19, but right now with all of their injuries, most of them being long-term injuries, especially with both of their quarterbacks being considerably under question, and the fact that their third-string quarterback looked pretty bad. I have the Dolphins at 19 temporarily. Once they get healthier, once either Teddy Bridgewater or Tua comes back, they will be higher than 19, but they're temporarily at 19 because of injuries. At 18 is the Jets. Again, they're temporarily here. They did beat the Dolphins this week and put up 40 points against them. I didn't think the Jets were capable of scoring 40 points, but they apparently are. They've also beaten the Browns, and they're 3-2. I don't know if I believe in the Jets currently. I think that their team is not as good as their record, but I do have to give them respect for being 3-2. It's impressive 5 games into the season to be 3-2, especially beating teams like Miami, beating the Browns. And I think that the 18 spot is understandable for them currently, although I don't know if it definitely reflects how good their team is currently. Next up, we have disappointing. All of these teams have been extremely disappointing this season. They're all 2-3, and I wasn't expecting any of them to be 2-3. We got the Saints at 17, we got the Patriots at 16, we got the Bengals at 15, we got the Cardinals at 14, and we got the Rams at 13. Cardinals are the least disappointing in this category because I believe that 15 is where I had them preseason, and they're at 14. So they actually have improved since my preseason predictions. They've done pretty much exactly how I expected them to. They've beaten the teams that they're better than, and they've lost to the teams that they're worse than. And the Rams game was a pretty close game. It was a lot of defense, and they ended up losing, ultimately. But, yeah. The Rams are at 13 because they beat Arizona and because they're the defending Super Bowl champions. Their games really haven't been impressive, especially the last 2 weeks, losing in pretty bad losses to the 49ers and the Cowboys, who are both looking very strong right now. So the Rams are at 13, but I really don't know if I believe in their offense. Cooper Kupp is being Cooper Kupp, but the rest of their offense really isn't working at all, and their defense hasn't been as dominant as it has been the last couple of seasons. The Bengals are at 15. They lost Week 1 to the Steelers. They got their season back on track, and then they lost this week to the Ravens. The Ravens are a strong team, but the Bengals need to beat a better... All of these teams need to beat a better team before I can put them any higher than where they are. I think all of these teams have potential to be strong contenders, but they all need to beat better teams. They all need to beat someone in the top 12. Because currently the best win on this entire slate is the Cardinals, who the Rams beat. The best win is another team in this section. So yeah, if you haven't beaten anyone better, sure, the Patriots had really close losses to the Packers and a really close loss to the Ravens, but that doesn't say much. The Bengals had a loss to the Ravens, that doesn't say much. Just because they've had harder teams that they've lost against. You can only really put them against teams that they're kind of clearly better than. And right now, they're all kind of a little disappointing because I thought these would be kind of strong playoff contenders. Patriots, as I've said, I really think 16 is a little too high, but I really don't know who I'd put above them. The Saints have had injury problems, which is why they're currently below the Patriots, but the Saints and Patriots are probably going to stay with each other for the foreseeable future. I think they have very similar teams where they have very strong defenses and their offenses are inconsistent at best, but they can get the job done when necessary. But they're going to stay together most of the time because I thought they're going to be similarly talented coming into the season. They both have the same record. They've both beaten and lost to similar teams, and their seasons have had very similar trajectories so far, so they're kind of going to stick together. The Patriots are above them currently because injury status. The Patriots are currently less injured than the Saints are, but the Saints will hopefully be healthy by next week, although some players will be banged up a little bit. I almost put the Saints in the category below, but I really can't put the Saints in the same category as the Jets right now, unless they have long-term injuries like the Dolphins. Moving on, we have the strong contenders. I think that the top 12, I think almost everyone will have the same top 12, with, depending on the order, might be different, but I'm pretty sure that the top 12 is going to be pretty consistent across pretty much everyone's rankings. We have the Titans at 12, we have the Chargers at 11, we have the Packers at 10, we have the Buccaneers at 9. Everyone that's 3-2 or better is at least number 12, except for the Jets currently. So, Titans. Wild ride of the season so far. Inconsistent, but Derrick Henry is being Derrick Henry once again. The first couple of weeks of the season, he was not. The last 3 weeks, he has been. And because of that, they've moved up to 12. Derrick Henry's looking a lot more consistent. And since he is their entire team, him looking consistent means the Titans are more consistent. Chargers are at 11. Their only real bad loss was against the Jaguars. It was a fluke loss when Justin Herbert was injured, and he played a bad game because he was coming off of an injury. Pretty fair. Other than that, they've played about how I expected them to, and they're 3-2, which is not bad by any means. Although they could be 4-1, I think that it's pretty fair to have them at 11. I have Tampa at 9 and the Packers at 10. The only reason why the Packers did beat Tampa, but that was another weird game where Tampa's entire wide receiver core was out or injured. Mike Evans was suspended, so the entirety of Tampa's team was out for that game. So I think that it's a poor representation of which of those two teams is better. And the Packers' offense has looked really bad the last couple of weeks. Or not bad, but inconsistent. They didn't score anything in the first half of the Patriots game, and they didn't score anything in the second half of the game this week, and against the Giants. And because of that, they've had their moments. Aaron Rodgers has had his moments. He scored 20 points in the first half this week. He was able to come back and win against the Patriots last week. But there's no consistency in the offense, and their defense hasn't been the best. They allowed 24 points to Bailey Zappi. There was a pick six in there, but they allowed 17 points to Bailey Zappi. And then this week, they let the Giants walk all over them. Their run defense is horrendous, and their pass defense is mid at best. As for the Buccaneers, their offense can't get in the end zone for the life of them. Their defense is extremely strong, and their offense can put yards on the board all day long, but they really can't get in the end zone. They were able to do it this week because they were playing the Falcons, but other weeks it's been tough. I want to see more. These are the teams that are really this category is going to stay where it is because I agree with it every single week. I keep telling myself I'm going to change it because it's kind of a cringy name, but I really do want to see more of all these teams. The Ravens have been inconsistent in games that they're leading in. They lost to Buffalo and Miami when they had 17-point leads, but other than that, they've been a very strong team, and they've played really good football, and Lamar Jackson is looking to be the MVP this season. At 8, we have the New York Giants. At 6, we have the San Francisco 49ers. And at 5, we have the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants are currently 4-1, one of the best records in the league after the Eagles, tied with teams like Buffalo and soon-to-be Kansas City probably, and the Vikings, and Dallas, and not the 49ers. They're below the 49ers in the they're this high because they beat the Packers. I was not expecting the Giants to be this good, but they're consistently doing well, and better than I thought that they would. And they beat the Packers this week, which is a big boost for them. I really wasn't going to put them in the top 10, but once they beat the Packers, I thought it was time. The 49ers and the Cowboys, Jimmy Garoppolo is 3-1. Cooper Rush is 4-0, 5-0 in his career. I don't know exactly what is up with the Cowboys, but there's something I like to call the Cooper Rush effect. He's obviously not the MVP of the league this year, but because of the Cooper Rush effect, the Cowboys have become one of the best teams in the league. And I think that if Dak Prescott does return from injury, Cooper Rush should continue to be the quarterback because he's just that good. As for the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo is playing really good offensive football the last couple of weeks. Not his typical game manager football, but really good offensive football. And I like to see that from Jimmy Garoppolo, especially with the Niners defense. Last but certainly not least, we have the NFL's Elite. This category has not changed in like 3 weeks because these teams have just been the 4 best teams in the league. The Eagles are still undefeated, so they're still number 1. Buffalo is still the best team in the league, so they're still number 2. Kansas City is still the best team in the league, so they're still number 3. And the Vikings are still the 4th best team in the league, so they're still number 4. I mean, the Vikings played an iffy game against the Bears this week, but they've been extremely consistent. They've had really strong offensive performances, and their defense has looked a lot better than it has in previous years. Kansas City played a really great game last week against Tampa Bay. This week, they are playing the Raiders. If they do lose that game, they'll probably go down to 4. I don't see them dropping a whole lot, even if they lose to the Raiders, because it's Kansas City. And it's also a divisional matchup. As for Buffalo, the reason why they're still below the Eagles is because the Eagles are still undefeated. And Buffalo played a great game this week against the last-place Steelers. But the Eagles, in my opinion, Buffalo lost number 1 when they lost a game to Miami. The Eagles have retained the number 1 spot because they're undefeated. And until the Eagles lose a game, they're going to stay the number 1 team in the league. Because they have a very strong offense and a very strong defense. So, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.